So the left is finally showing their true colors, fawning over the gold medalist, as CNN has said, uh, talking about Kim Jong Un's sister, his sister Kim Yo Jong, top advisor to the brutal dictator Kim Jong Un of the communist. Don't ever forget it's communist because all production and people are controlled by the state. So don't forget, communism always has a dictator in power as well. Not a lot of people realize that that is a communist country. Not even a, maybe you could say it's a monarchy as well. But the worst monarchy ever to exist. Anyways, the left being caught fawning over his sister, Kim Jong Un. She is apparently the propaganda prime minister the prime minister of propaganda and agitation, I have read. And wow, she's popped on the world stage at the Olympics, caught smiling numerous times. And the left, CNN and such, has said she has stolen the show. Them fawning over communist dictators is sickening at best, if not downright evil. They don't understand the millions of lives that have been lost in North Korea due to artificial starvation or famine caused literally by the government and nothing else. It's really interesting, how much power a government can establish. Individuals cannot fight government. Not when anytime they want you to do something, they've got guns to every member of your family. They are making these people, the North Korean cheerleaders, for example, I'm sure they have a lot of leverage on all these people, which is why, for one, they're not defecting, and for two, they're playing their parts well, as if they are happy. And they are not, as we know from many people who have escaped North Korea, one of which was at Trump's latest congressional State of the Union speech. And he was so starving at one point in his life that he was trying to steal some coal from a train track. And he was so starving, famished, he literally passed out on the train tracks and woke up to a train severing both of his legs. And then he had to endure 2 amputations without anesthetic. And then not long after that, he decided he would rather die than stay in North Korea. So with his crutches, he got out. If you can get out of North Korea with 2 crutches, I gotta say, wow, that takes some bravery, because I'm guessing his family, if he had any family, died from that. I'm guessing. He has some bravery. He doesn't have any family left. And, if I was a parent in North Korea, you'd have to have a sit down one night and say, everyone, I've spent all the money I have on food. We're going to pack this up. We're not going to pack up any clothes. We're going to leave it all behind. Just, as much clothes as you can hold and as much food as you can hold. And we're leaving tonight. And if any of you want to stay behind for this dictator regime, this communist evil dictatorship of sorts, if you want to stay behind for that, feel free. But, I'll have to tie you down, even if you're my son or my wife. It's the only way to protect those of us who are brave enough to leave. And I'd get the whole family to go. Just pack up and go. And the fact that that doesn't happen often enough is because of brainwashing or propaganda and agitation. And that's because these people are so brainwashed. They literally believe Kim Jong-un can read their freaking minds. If you don't believe me, just Google North Korean escapists or escapees. And you'll find all kinds of people who have spoken around the world, especially China, and said, when they were children, they literally thought their minds were being read, and they were terrified all the time. neighbors always reporting on each other. This is how communism works. It's how the KGB locked up millions of people in gulags and killed millions more. Not to mention the artificial famines that were created in the Soviet Union as well as the People's Republic of China. All communist governments kill millions of people, which is why I'm speaking up. And this video is not about the North Korean leadership. It's not even about North Korea. This video is starting now, okay? And it's going to be about you and me speaking up, being brave, and getting some goddamn guts. Because the time of being peaceful, I think, is past. Members of the Trump family have been sent fake anthrax envelopes that have covered them in white powder, and the left has been also releasing stories about them as though they were like they had phobias about white powder, as though it could have potentially been their own doing. It was merely some powdered sugar or cocaine or something, you know, all this garbage. What I'm talking about in this video, getting some guts, is just speaking your mind. I know it's not always fun to talk about politics, but it's time that we all, everyone on the right, everyone that's a libertarian, everyone that's an anarchist, everyone that's a minarchist, everyone that has sound thinking, a sound mind, it's time to start speaking up. We have to stop being quiet. Every time you hear some bullshit propaganda, people talking about fake news, anytime you know for a fact that it is in fact false, you gotta stop being cowardly. You gotta start speaking up. Last night on Netflix, I watched a movie. It happens to be my favorite horror film that I've seen in at least a year and a half. I'm not joking. It's called The Ritual. I loved it. I really, really did. And, you know, a lot of Netflix originals has a kind of a tendency to get a bad rap just before you even turn it on, because you kind of are under the influence that it might have a low budget, might have some issues with the writing quality and such, but not this one. No, this is my favorite movie that I've seen in a long time. But I don't want to give anything away, but I will say this. Without any spoilers, this movie was fantastic and probably was a fairly high budget for some of Netflix's films. Nonetheless, that being said, the premise of the film was relatively simple, which for a horror film, they kind of gotta be that way. But without spoiling too much, this isn't a major spoiler, so don't cover your ears. But basically, it's about a main character who goes through a lot of hardship. I'm being super vague right now. Try not to spoil anything for you because the movie was fantastic. Again, it's called The Ritual. Anyways, the movie, in my opinion, this is my synopsis of the film, is a journey of one person and how he finally finds his guts, his freaking bravado, his bravery, his manhood. Okay? At the end of the film, you'll see him triumphantly or pathetically. That's up to you, but one or the other, screaming, shouting, roaring, howling. And it reminds me of a vast number of self-help type conferences, you know, Tony Robbins type stuff. And sometimes he'll find a coward, a male coward, a soy boy in the crowd, and he'll go out to that soy boy and he'll say, "What do you want?" And they'll tell him what they want. Usually it's financial freedom, something better, a better relationship and such. And he'll ask him some questions, and he'll cut the bullshit super fast. And at some point, he starts realizing that this guy has what he wants if he was only willing to take it. And so he says, why don't you give me your best war shout? In a huge conference of people. So the guy does some measly, pathetic little like, ah! You know, maybe in Tony's face, that sounded loud. But to everyone else in the room, they hardly heard it. Because he didn't have a mic anyway, right? Tony laughs at him. Ha! That wasn't loud enough. So tell him to do it again. And again. And again. And eventually, the guy is loud as he can possibly be. He is roaring, screaming, as loud as he can. Ah! You know? And you can see by the last time he does it, he's finally broken through all the fucking bullshit. And what bullshit am I talking about? I'm talking about the social constructs, the social anxiety that we as men let get in our souls. They eat up at us, keep us from being men, keep you from doing what you want, keep you from letting your testosterone let you be who you want to be. Let that sink in. I am saying that society is dominated by feminism. And there is a war on manhood. And if you really want to be happy, be yourself. Be a fucking man. If you're a man. I'm only talking to guys right now, honestly. But if you want to help yourself be happy, stop being a fucking coward. I could make so many videos. This channel, Destination Truth, is really didn't start out to be about me, but I feel like I have a fuck ton to share about how to be happier, how to be happy, how to be happier, and how to be a fucking man. Being in a large crowd and doing something out of the ordinary takes bravery. It does. And screaming at the top of your lungs, that is just, it's a little odd, a little weird. So it takes guts. And that's why Tony Robbins and many other self-help people probably still do that to this day, is because for men, in particular, men, not women, men, they have to grow a pair. You have to be brave to be a man. It's not easy. It's easier to be a woman. It's easier. Maybe not when you got, a period every month, but in order to get what you want out of life as a woman, you just have to be attractive. You don't have to know that much. You don't have to do that much. A man is measured by his accomplishments and what he does in life. To get what you want in life as a man, you have to be dominant. You have to do. You have to act. You have to be brave. Sorry, my video quality is getting crappy. Sorry. That's good enough, I guess. But anyways, guys, let me know if you like this kind of content. But I have more to share. And I want to share a story with you from my childhood. A day that I'll never forget, ever. And this day in my life still makes me sad to this day. Even though just about anybody would say I made the right decision. Anybody. Except for me. Because I know what happened, and I know what I felt. Let me share the story. So when I was only in middle school, 8th grade, I think, maybe 7th. Anyways, me and my friends lived in a very, unfortunately for me, because I had a shitty childhood, because I was the 6th child of a, that's a big family, and I felt like I was nearly destitute compared to my peers because I lived in a well-off area. And, my parents weren't destitute, but they had 6 kids. So that money split 6 ways made me feel like I was destitute compared to my peers. And so I didn't have a very easy upbringing, feeling like I was very poor, as well as suffering some abuse as a child from parents and siblings. But that's for another time. So, my friends, who I was very close with, closer to them than my own family in many, many ways, is out with 5 of them one night, I believe. No, that was including me. There's 4 of them. But one of them, we'll call him Dylan. That's not his real name, but he is a hothead. He's funny. He's rambunctious. He's definitely got a lot of testosterone because he's crazy. He's literally crazy. He's got very few inhibitions, but that kind of freedom makes you, as a male, you probably know someone like this, it makes you feel alive too, and it makes you want to act that way. It makes you feel outgoing, and you do more, and you feel alive. And if maybe another video, I'll make a video on what makes most men that have high testosterone, what will make you happier in life. That's for another time. But this particular night, us 4 were hanging out at a movie theater that had a huge like strip mall around it, big strip mall area. And on the backs of the strip mall were dumpsters and parking, but the parking is for employees, so that's not the main parking area. So this is like a secretive area that didn't have lights like the parking lots area did. And so it was like dark, and me and my friends went back there, not because we were doing drugs, but because we were just fooling around. We found funny stuff for tossing boxes around. I don't know what you call those, but like, a table with wheels on it so you can throw boxes around. Anyways, so we're fooling around. And at some point, 4 cars just like came roaring into this parking lot. Again, this is behind the stores, very dark area, not a parking lot. And so we immediately, after the first one showed up and came to a screeching stop, like, they stopped really hard. We knew whatever was happening or about to happen, or whoever these people were, it didn't matter very much. None of those things matter very much. All we knew is this is not a good place to be hanging out right now. So 2 of my friends took off saying, like, guys, let's get out of here. And we had barely enough time. Like, literally, these cars were coming in an angle that would separate us somewhat from our escape if we waited too long. So we started walking that way, and Kevin, the hothead, stayed farthest behind. And little backstory, Kevin and I in elementary school, when we were even younger, were like the high school bully cops, where there were bullies at our, not high school, elementary school. There were some bullies that were hurting innocent people, and he and I worked together to teach them lessons and stuff. So yeah, I'd gotten quite a few fights as a kid, in elementary school at least. None officially in high school, although there was 1 or 2 that I would say were kind of like fights. But anyways, I didn't get in trouble in middle or high school ever, just for the record. But in elementary school, I did. I'm a different person. But anyways, so Kevin lags behind. He says, hey, wait. And the other 2 are long gone. So it's just me and Kevin now. And these 4 cars have all pulled in. And the last one to pull in rolls down their window and says something to Kevin. And Kevin's just standing there almost in the middle of this rather small, dark alleyway. Not an alley necessarily. There's like maybe 50 feet between the backs of the buildings, the stores, and this wall. And in between the wall and these buildings were, dumpsters in certain areas, and, random poles to keep people from parking in certain areas and stuff like that. So anyways, it was dark. So I was like, dude, let's go. And so I said, Dylan, hey, let's go. And he said, just wait up 1 second. And someone said something to him again. I didn't hear it, and still to this day, I forget what it was. It was too long ago. But my buddy Kevin just laughed, and the guys got out of the car, and I realized at that moment that almost each car had 2 to 4 people in them. So the last car where the people rolled down the window, that car had 4 people in it. When they all got out, I turned my back on my friend, and I didn't run away. I didn't skip away, but I did like sidewalks slash jog away because I knew whatever was gonna happen, it's not a good idea. And I think I heard them say, "What you laughing at?" to my buddy Dylan, and my friend my friend said something about their car, insulting their car. And again, we were in middle school, so Kevin's a highhead. He's an idiot. And that's why I know that 99.9% of the people are going to say it was right for me to take off. It was just a dumb situation. Why would you stay behind unless you're an idiot? Maybe my friend's an idiot, but this right here is the point of the story is one of those guys got out and punched my friend in the face. And he didn't have the ability to fight back because he would have been surrounded in seconds, and I was already too far away. And I was already too far away telling him, "Dylan, get over here," yelling at him. And after he got punched, he still talked back to those guys. I forget what he said. It was too long ago. I haven't been given this much thought since then. But he started walking my way. Never ran. Never even jogged. He just walked cool-headed towards me, and I never turned the corner to hide or anything, but I was watching it because I didn't want him to get hurt, and I wanted to know what was going on. So when he rounded the corner, he spat a whole bunch of blood out of his mouth, and I realized he got hit really hard. And those are, high schoolers or something, and we were in middle school, so yeah, that was hard. And so I ran around the corner, and I was like, "Where'd you guys?" My other two friends, I asked them where they went, and they had excuses, obviously, but it's because they're being cowardly. And that night, fast forward, that night I got home kind of late for a middle schooler, but I was at the computer, and my mom found me, and I was weeping. I remember I was crying heavily, and my mom asked me, "What's going on? What's wrong?" And I could hardly get the words out, but I said I let my friend down. And still to this day, I feel bad about what I did. I feel like I should have stayed right there by his side just because he's my friend. And because that same day, the real reason I was crying, the realest reason I was crying about that evening was because I realized that I was a coward. I'm not always a coward. But that night, and several other nights in my life, it's okay to be a coward sometimes. It's better to be alive than dead, right? It's better to be smart than stupid. But that night, as a middle schooler, it hit me hard because I was intelligent enough and, intellectual enough to realize that what I had done might set a precedent for me as a coward for the rest of my life. And that night I just knew I just didn't want to be a coward because I felt so bad knowing that I just potentially was good enough, potentially had the power to keep my friends safe. And I didn't. It's not a big regret or anything, but it stays with me to this day. To this day. If you're a boy, I'm going to guess if you look back throughout your entire life, you might have an experience or two like that. And my advice to you is to really think long and hard about who you are and what you are. Use objective reality. I'm not talking if you weigh 140 and you're, 5 feet something, it's not a good idea to try to get in a fight or anything. And I'm not saying it's a good idea to get in a fight ever. Never a good idea. But I'm saying now is the time to stand up for humanity. Be brave, because thousands and thousands of thousands were brave before you to give you the rights and the freedoms you have now. And we hear this all the time. Trust me, I know. We hear this all the time about the dead soldiers that paid for our rights, but people don't think about it. They don't think about what's at stake right now, because communists are all over the freaking place. And those folks from the Frankfurt School in Germany came and impregnated the entire university system in this country, for the most part. And when I say for the most part, I mean like we're talking about the 99 percentile here. Every university is just rife with communists teaching propaganda. And when you leave colleges these days, you're typically stupider than when you went in because you've got so much propaganda in your ass. There's no way you can get it out without some difficulty. Luckily, I was pretty red-pilled before I even went into college, so I didn't let a lot of that propaganda get in. Let me share one last story of an example of how I want you to be brave. When you're hearing lies and bullshit, just complete BS, you got to raise your hand. You got to speak up, shout, whatever it takes. Do something. We got to let these stupid leftist ideas, we got to stop them from taking over. The SJWs, feminists, all of them, they got to be stopped. The story I want to share with you happens to have been in college, in my critical thinking class. Again, I went to the most liberal university in this entire country, San Francisco State University. I mean, you might think your college is worse, but I highly, highly doubt it. They pride themselves on things like diversity, and that's about it. They have some good credentials for certain degrees, but I mean, I'm getting pretty pissed at how lousy a reputation they have for business, because that's what I wanted to do, international business. So anyways, here's what happened. This particular day, we're going over some chapters from a few books that we had read, and one of them covered the theory of homosexuality and whether it is nature versus nurture, and that they believed, or a certain group believes, it was predominantly nature and not nurture. And they're basing it on a certain molecule that increases it doesn't increase. It decreases. That's right. Testosterone itself, I believe it is. Testosterone, the amino acid, is actually lower and lower the more boys that your mother has, especially in a row. So if she has 2 or 3 or 4 boys in a row, the level of testosterone each one consecutively has is lower, because the mother becomes more capable of fighting the increase of those molecules within her body. So her body gets better at regulating, which is natural with any drug, basically. So it's like your mother's body is getting better at fighting off like a foreign molecule or something. And so that was the theory, which that particular part actually apparently had some serious credentials, seemed well-founded. However, what they extrapolated from that was that each consecutive boy born in a row, and not necessarily in a row, if there's 1 or 2 girls somewhere in that mix, but there's 4 boys in a family, the youngest of those boys is the most likely to be a homosexual, based on nature, based on their molecular makeup, pretty much. And so they gave out the statistic of 30%. So each boy you have consecutively is 30% more likely to become a homosexual. And I'm the youngest of 6 kids. I have 1 sister. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. I have 1 sister. That means there's 5 boys. So when we finally brought that up in class, I raised my hand. No one else was raising their hand at this time. I said, I don't know how to say this, but I'm literally the youngest of a family of 6 kids. I have 4 brothers before me, and I am factually not a homosexual. And so, sorry, not trying to be rude, but why are we teaching this material if it's complete nonsense? It's complete, not true. It's factually not true. And so I embarrassed my teacher, and he spent nearly 5 to 10 minutes backpedaling, sidestepping, and eventually basically coming to the conclusion that it's statistically more probable, but not always the case. So, and I had 1 sister, so, it would have messed things up. But if I had had 5 older brothers and I was the 6th child, he still was kind of contending or holding to the opinion that there was a good chance I would have been a homosexual, and I just, you know, maybe there's some substance there, but I still know a ton, and I mean a ton. I know a family of 10, 5 boys, 5 girls. None of them are homosexual. No one in that family is a homosexual. So the whole nature thing, it just, from my objective reality, from my truth, I don't know a single family with a homosexual, with homosexual kids. I actually do know one friend. One friend became a homosexual from childhood, and he had only one sibling, and they're both boys. So, hey, there you go. I don't know, but in situations like that, when you know that the argument being made is in fact factually just cannot hold a flame at any time, there's just, if you look at the statistics, the number of homosexuals actually out there is a very, very small number. And because we live in this pro-homosexual, trans, now friggin' retarded, I honestly think the next movement is like retarded people are going to be glamorized or something. I don't even know. I don't know how deeper we can dig ourselves other than being pro-Islam and trans people who should not be allowed to raise kids because they will give them a very adverse childhood. I guarantee it. No matter how much you spoil them, they will wind up messed up. I know 2 people that had gay parents, and they're not happy people. They have drug issues. I'm not blaming their parents, really. I'm really not. But I know that they had a bad childhood because I don't think I know anyone that has serious drug issues that didn't have a bad childhood. So, of course the left would blame it on the social construct of family. Family is a social construct too now. It's like, nope, you need a mom and a dad to have a family. You can't have 2 dads. You don't get anything. No. Can't have 2 moms. You don't get anything. Anyway. I could rant for hours, guys. I really wish I had a little bit more support, guys. A lot of my videos the algorithm holds my videos down. I get less than 100 viewers most often. So if you are watching this and you enjoyed anything I said, please give me a like and subscribe. And more than anything, please, please, please be brave and speak up when you hear communist idiocracy.